All right, we're back. We're back. We're back. Recap of the week, man. We're gonna talk about a few games and then just talk about a couple other things that transpired. Obviously, big time win for Colorado. Last play of the game to kind of send it into overtime. That was interesting. But we're gonna start with USC versus Michigan, right? So Saturday morning, me and my co-host trucking. We do our picks for the day, and USC versus Michigan was one of the games that we picked, and we both said we're taking USC. Right? I said that I wasn't going to allow for. I wasn't gonna pick them again after their Texas performance, even though even though I did say that I didn't feel like USC had the same amount of firepower as Texas had, or had the same type of roster that Texas had after me looking at what Texas did have, because I must say that I made that pick based on an assertion that I felt like Texas didn't have something that they in fact did have, and that was a very, very experienced offensive line. But the game went back and forth, man. The game went back and forth. There was a point in the game that it looked like Michigan was gonna, win the game. Then there was a point in the game that looked like, okay, well, USC is gonna win the game, right? Um, I felt one of the biggest reasons that I picked USC was like they said they're starting Alex Orji at quarterback, right? And one of the things that they've said about Alex Orji is like, hey, look, he hasn't the forward pass isn't one of the things that he's mastered right now, and you can see that in the game. I don't think they threw double digit passes. But the way that the game went, they didn't have to, right? And even when it looked like USC was applying enough pressure to the point that it was going to force them to throw the ball, Michigan stayed true to who they were, and they ran the ball. Both defenses played very well. Will Johnson ended up getting another pick six. I just think, man, he's the best. I don't think he's just the best corner in the country. He might be the best defensive back in the country, right? He just might be. So another pick six for him. Um, Miller Moss, the first half, he didn't. I mean, he didn't look as good because that Michigan defense was getting off. But then the second half, he started to look like a vintage Lincoln Riley type quarterback. And I said, well, here it is. USC's going to pull it off. I'm going to be right. And Caleb Mullen said, not so fast. That run that he had, the second one, not the first one, the second one, the run that led to them going ahead and taking the lead, that's not supposed to happen. He was supposed to get to that level of the defense, and somebody was supposed to be able to tackle him. Nobody tackled him. Next thing you know, he's running down the sideline, and see, I believe it was a 60 some yard run, 60 some, 70, maybe 60 or 70 some yard run. They're in scoring position. And Michigan said, you know what, USC, we don't feel like you got a big enough dose of him. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna give him the ball off the left side this time. Not off tackle. We're going to the left. And it was blocked up beautifully. And they went in and they scored. And that was that. Michigan pulls it off. I think Sharon Moore, they needed this victory. And I think this win, I'm not gonna say it changes the trajectory of the way Michigan, of what Michigan can do this particular year. I do think that that they're still going to have some difficulties, but I do think that getting a win against a USC, because I don't think, obviously, as good as Ohio State is, Ohio State might be as good as they might be as good as Texas, but then again they might not be. But I think a win like this kind of goes a long way to show that, man, Michigan, they might not be the Michigan of last year, Connor Stallions, but they still are going to play their game. And you have to respect it, right? Because again, like I said, there were points right there in that game where it's like, me going up into that last drive. I sat there and I said, I know Michigan's not gonna run. I know they're not gonna throw the ball. They're not gonna risk throwing the ball. So I said, man, USC has this locked up. And then like I said, next thing you know, a big run, and then they score a touchdown, and then that's that. All right, that's that. But man, it was a good game, man. You know what I mean? Like I said, I like watching good games that go down to the wire, and that was one of those games that that went down to the wire, man. And Michigan, you know, the championship program that they are, I have to say that now because they're the defending national champions. Um, they played like a champion, man. They didn't give up. They stuck to who they were, and they took care of business. Their defense took care of business. It looked like the Michigan defense of last year in many instances. Even though I know it's not as good as it was last year, but they had some flashes that they're still just as good, right? But so kudos to Michigan, man. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be interesting, watching and see how they finish out the season. And they very well may still be in contention for the Big Ten. You know what I mean? If they can continue to make games look like this, it's gonna be interesting because we may look around and say, man, Texas may have just been the chosen team this year, right? So, and like I said, it would be unfair to look at any other team to say like, well, like, oh well, USC is going to do New Michigan like Texas did. Like, no, you can't do that, right? You can't do that. But where does USC go, right? Because I know they were coming off of a high of beating the LSU team, but the LSU defense is not this good, right? And when you look at it, it was kind of a similar score, right, in the 20s. So it kind of goes back to, is USC defense truly improved, and how good is their offense really? You know what I mean? And to me, those are the two questions that I have, that I'm asking after that game, because um yeah, I gotta show me something. You know what I mean? You gotta show me something. You know what I mean? But we'll move on. Oklahoma, Tennessee, right? We picked this game, right? I went with Tennessee. The reason I went with Tennessee is because I felt like that again, and what I said held true. The big play that to Dante Thornton that Nico threw, it was one of those plays where they were not off schedule. Took the snap, did what he needed to do. Dante Thornton came open. Nico threw the ball. Nothing was off schedule. They went for a touchdown. Same thing goes for the big play that he had to Brew McCoy. If you do not get them off schedule, you're not going to beat Tennessee. But I did also say, if there is a man who can put together a plan to get them off schedule, it is Brent Venables. And more times than not, they did get them off schedule. Now, when I know what the final score of the game was, I know what it was. But if you sit there and watch that game, Oklahoma had an opportunity to win that game. And in many instances, you could just say Oklahoma's offense failed them, right? They failed them. Now, obviously, Tennessee defensive front was getting a lot, getting a lot of pressure, doing a lot of things. So much so, Jackson Arnold ended up getting benched. Now, I'm not going to say that. I think I can't remember what the young man name is that came in for Jackson Arnold. He came in, played pretty well, and I don't know if they're going to have a quarterback situation. I don't know if this is Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams 2.0. I'm not going to say all of that. I'm not going to say all of that, but it did look like the offense looked a little bit different with him in the game. I must say that, but I'm not. I'm not going to say that had he started the game, Oklahoma would have won. But Oklahoma played very well defensively. They played very well. They played. much better than I believe a lot of people thought. Nico was under a lot of pressure in a lot of situations. Um, they limited the run game, and it just again, like I said, it was just a few big plays. Some big plays that pretty much set this game. That just really tilted this game in Tennessee's favor. I don't think that Tennessee thoroughly beat Oklahoma. I felt like that was going to be the best game of the day, and I must say I was not disappointed. Right, I was not disappointed. Now, if you're Jackson Arnold today, you got to stop and you got to think, well, what do I got to do to prove that I should be the quarterback moving forward for this team? What do I need to do to show that, look, I'm not Spencer Rattler and this young man right here isn't Caleb Williams, right? So it's gonna be some questions that need to be answered. But man, like I said, if you do not get them off, if you do not get Tennessee off schedule, you're not gonna beat them, right? And like I said, kudos to Brett Venable and his staff for doing everything they could to keep Nico off schedule, and they kept them off schedule for a lot of the game. But when they did not keep them off schedule, they hurt them, and they hurt them enough to win the game. And Oklahoma's offense, Jackson Arnold did enough to hurt them offensively, throwing an interception, and then ended up with two fumbles and getting pulled from the game. So, like I said, I don't know where his psyche could be right now. And then for the guy that they pull you for to come in and lead a drive down the field, man, because for the longest part, the offense was just stagnant. Nothing was going nothing was going in Oklahoma's favor offensively until the backup came in the game, right? So again, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward because this is not going to be the only powerful SEC team that they play this year. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Jackson Arnold can get the reins back, or if they're going to go with the backup moving forward. So there's going to be something interesting to say. I didn't watch the post game presser, so I'm sure that was one of the questions that they probably asked Coach Venables, and I'm sure there's going to be a question they asked him during the week, kind of, what it is. So I don't know if he turned around and solidified and said, hey, look, no, Jackson Arnold's our quarterback. We just felt like that he needed to see some stuff because, coach speak is like, oh, well, we just needed to take him out the field so he could kind of, look and analyze the game a little bit better, right? They'll say that, kind of as they say, to kind of keep building confidence in the guy without not snatching the confidence away, right? Which I believe last week, I think Jackson Arnold may have threw 2 interceptions in the game last week, I think so. So it's going to be interesting, man, because like I said, Oklahoma, in my opinion, was right there in the game, right? Not saying they could have, not saying they were going to win the game, but they did enough, I feel, defensively that if they would have gotten anything in the offense in the first half, Tennessee may well could have been on the ropes, right? Tennessee may well could have been on the ropes. And sometimes what happens when you're on the ropes and you got a young quarterback like that, they may try to do things that they don't need to do to try to generate a play. But seeing as that Oklahoma's offense was not putting enough pressure on Tennessee's offense to do more, Nico didn't have that thought in the back of his mind, right? And so when he had time and they were in, they weren't off schedule, they burnt him. Simple as that. I thought this game was a lot closer than some people thought it was going to be, right? But I really felt like that. This is Brent Venable's third year, so pretty much the defense that he wants to run, the guys understand it. Veteran guys, understand it. So I think Oklahoma will be fine, man. They played on paper probably a more talented team, but when you watch the game, you couldn't tell. Aside from the offense, right? Aside from Jackson Arnold, because they did the whole comparison type of thing where it's like, well, no, ESPN had Jackson Arnold much better than Nico was, right? But it is what it is, man. It's one of those type of games, man. But that being said, man, kudos to Oklahoma for playing tough, and kudos for Tennessee for still being one of the top teams in college football, right? So Louisville versus Georgia Tech, right? And I just watched this game because I hadn't watched Louisville play all year, and I know Louisville is playing my Hurricanes this year, so I at least wanted to kind of see what they look like, right? I know they're undefeated. Brom is, got a new quarterback, got some new weapons over there. And I just wanted to see what they look like. And I must say, um, they look solid. Georgia Tech looked solid, right? They were just two solid teams playing each other. I didn't see anything that was just eye opening aside from the Jacory Brooks catch, which, bro, that was crazy. I don't watch ESPN Sports Center, but that had to be the top play. I mean, the man literally got interfered with, turned around in a circle, looked forward, and then looked back in the air, located the ball, caught it, and ran in for a touchdown. Like, you don't see that type of stuff. I literally had to rewind it after the replay to say that did he really do what I think he did? The man literally grabbed him right here. He turned around in a circle without stepping out of bounds. Because if he stepped out of bounds, it would be illegal touching. Looked forward, almost to say, like, okay, has the ball dropped yet? Oh, it hasn't. Looked back up, located the ball again, caught it, and ran it in for a touchdown. I said, man, this is interesting. Now, the quarterback Louisville got, I was, I must say, I was impressed, by some of the throws, the poise. He seems to be, pretty, mobile. He did give up he did have the sack. I mean, the safety in the end zone, which that had been Miami. I don't know if they would have called it a safety, but there's neither here nor there. There's neither here nor there. But they played well, and Georgia Tech played well. You know what I mean? They lost, like I said, they lost to Syracuse, and again, I think this. I mean, I think there's going to be something that hurts them. Like I said, Georgia Tech is, playing teams that have multiple weapons, which Louisville had multiple weapons, similar to Syracuse, similar to what Miami has, multiple weapons. So, it's gonna be tough selling. But Haynes King, man, I like Haynes King. I must do. I did call him a quarterback. I mean, a running back playing quarterback, but I like him. He's tough. He's gritty. Um, statistically, statistically, he's having a good season. Statistically, he's having a good season. Throwing the ball, running the ball. I mean, he's the type of guy to me. Just looking at him play, like man, he's a tough guy, man. Real, very gritty. Um, Louisville, blocked the field goal, picked it up, ran it in for the touchdown. Same guy that blocked it ended up picking up, running in for a touchdown. So that was a big play. And man, just kind of looking at just the environment of them being in Louisville, man, it just made that game look like it almost looked like I don't. It almost looked like you're watching like a big time football game. I'm not saying Georgia Tech and Louisville not big time, but you know what I mean. Like it made it look like it was one of those premier matchups where it's like a vintage Miami versus Florida State or current Georgia versus Alabama. It kind of put me in the mind frame of that because it didn't. And again, I'm watching the condensed version, so I didn't really see any of the penalties and stuff like that. So pretty much I got a clean version of the game, but it looked like just good execution on both sides in one of those situations where somebody had to lose, right? And Louisville was able to pull it out. They remain undefeated, on the season, and man, they look good, man. Right? I mean, they look good. They're balanced. Solid defense, solid offense. And like I said, even though Georgia Tech falls to 3-2, I still think they're a solid team. I still think they're a pretty good team. But man, I mean that's about it, man. Those are only a couple of games that I really kind of paid attention to. Obviously, the Kansas State BYU game. I don't think anybody predicted for the game to go that way. They just ran Kansas State off of the field. Um, I was watching the game on and off, and one of the plays that I did watch was the 93-yard return, and it's kind of interesting because nowadays when you see a big time return, you're looking for okay, where's the flag, where's the block in the back, where's the low block or holding, like where is it? It wasn't a flag. So, and then, they replayed it because it looked like the guy may have dropped the ball, before he, crossed the plane, similar to the Oregon situation. But they upheld it and, BYU just, they took care of business, right? I think that's probably the worst game Avery Johnson has played. They pretty much held Giddens in, pretty much held Giddens in check as well. So, you know, good game by BYU, man. You know what I mean? A good game by them. They've always been a solid team, at least for the last decade or so. They've always been a pretty solid team. I know a lot of people had Kansas State kind of circled to win or be one of the contenders for the Big 12 title, but to kind of get ran off the field like that was interesting to say. And then probably the two best teams in the Big 12 ended up playing. That's Oklahoma State and Utah, and Utah was able to pull that game out. Without Cam Rising. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not if Utah turns around and wins the Big 12 in their first year there, because I periodically watch that game as well, and they look good. They look good. Because that was one of the things that I was telling my co-host. I said, man, Oklahoma's finally gone. Texas is finally gone. Oklahoma State has been the impromptu number 3 for the longest period of time. And now it's like, all right, the two big dogs are gone. Now it's time to let the new guys know, look, this is our conference. And they didn't pass the first test. Utah comes in and, hey, man, y'all can be number 2. You know what I'm saying? But y'all not gonna be number 1. We number 1. Y'all gonna be number 2. Y'all will be Texas, and we're gonna be Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? So, but other than that, man, that was about all the games. I pretty much checked that. Obviously, we got a big, big, big time matchup this upcoming week with Georgia playing Alabama, which you don't normally get this game during the regular season anyway, based on the way that the schedules have been. But this is gonna be a big time. It's gonna be a big time game. Kalen DeBoer, again, who just, like I say, has an absurd win-loss record. So it's gonna be interesting to see how he gets Alabama ready for Georgia, right? Because obviously Alabama's coming off a game in which they played USF last weekend. The game was relatively close, up until the fourth quarter. And then obviously Georgia, having played, Kentucky in a game that ended up just being 12-13. So it's gonna be interesting to kind of see how those two teams, come out and perform, because it's gonna be some big time football play, right? You know what I mean? It's gonna be some big time football play. So it'll be interesting to see how this game shapes out. Um, Early right now, I don't know. Probably, I don't know. I don't want to ruin it. I don't know who I'm gonna end up picking. But anyway, man, that's it, man. We're out. So appreciate it, man. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.